Welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take really complex, fascinating research and break it down into something you can really wrap your head around.
You know, we humans, we're a pretty self-centered bunch, aren't we? We love to picture ourselves at the very top of the food chain, the undisputed masters of the planet. We imagine our earliest ancestors as these mighty hunters. But what if that whole picture is wrong? What if the real story, buried for millions of years, is, well, a lot less glamorous?
All right, Section 1, Hunter or Hunted. We're going to challenge that classic image of early man. You know the one I'm talking about? This idea of man the hunter? It's everywhere, this belief that hunting big, scary animals is what made us, well, us. But here's the thing. For most of our evolutionary story, we weren't the hunters. We were the hunted. So what if we've been telling our own origin story completely backward? That's what we're digging into today. Think of it as a cold case, a 4.4 million-year-old cold case. We're going to investigate a mysterious ancestor whose bones are challenging everything we thought we knew, and suggest our best traits came from fear, not from being the toughest on the block.
Okay, let's get into the case file. The star of our show is a skeleton named Ardi, unearthed in Ethiopia. The central clue in this whole mystery is a remarkable fossil genus called Ardipithecus. The big finds came out of the Afar region of Ethiopia, which is basically a fossil gold mine for our ancient relatives.
So, take a look at our family tree here. This really puts things into perspective. You've probably heard of Lucy, right? Well, Ardi, that's Ardipithecus ramidus, is over 1 million years older than Lucy. That is a huge amount of time. We're not just winding the clock back a little bit, we are getting incredibly close to that fork in the road, where our lineage split off from the one that led to modern chimpanzees. This is a sneak peek at what one of our earliest ancestors was really like.
So let's meet the Ardipithecus. You've got two main players here. First, there's Ardipithecus kadaba, who's a bit older, around 5.8 million years ago. We only have bits and pieces of that one. But the real star is Ardipithecus ramidus. We found over 110 different specimens, which is just incredible. And the most famous of all is Ardi, a female skeleton that's about 50% complete. Her name actually means ground floor root in the local language, which is just perfect because she really is at the root of our family tree.
All right, now for the really cool part. Ardi's body is basically a walking contradiction. It's like she's built for two completely different worlds at the same time. Let's look at the anatomy.
And this is the heart of the puzzle right here. Just look at this. On one side, you have these very ape-like features. A grasping big toe for climbing trees? Check. Long arms, curved fingers? Check. A tiny brain about the size of a chimp's? Yep. But then, you look at the other side, and you see things that are screaming human ancestor. The upper part of her pelvis is short and broad, perfect for balancing on two legs. Her foot has a rigid structure for pushing off when walking. And her canine teeth? They're small and not at all threatening. It's a total paradox.
So what do you call this weird mix? Well, scientists call it facultative bipedalism. It just means she had the ability to walk on two legs when she was on the ground, but she was still perfectly at home climbing around in the trees. She wasn't a bad walker or a bad climber, she was great at both. A master of two worlds. Okay, so the big question is why? Why evolve this strange two-in-one way of getting around? To figure that out, we have to go back in time and reconstruct the world Ardi lived in. We need to know what she was up against. Now, you might have heard that old story about how he stood up to see over the tall grass in the savannah. Well, you can just throw that idea out the window. The evidence is clear. Ardi lived in a woodland, and this was not some peaceful forest. For a little hominin with no tools and no big fangs, the ground was an incredibly dangerous place to be.
And I mean really dangerous. We're not talking about your average predators here. The Pliocene was like something out of a nightmare. You had these false saber-toothed cats ambushing you from the bushes, giant crocs like 25 feet long in the rivers, and huge eagles that could just snatch you from above. Danger was literally everywhere.
And this wasn't just a freak accident, happening once in a while. Based on fossils, bones with tooth marks and talon scratches, scientists estimate that somewhere between 6 and 10% of early hominins became lunch. Think about that. As many as 1 in 10 of our ancestors was eaten by a predator. That kind of pressure changes everything.
Okay, so how on earth did this small, basically defenseless creature survive? The biggest clue is in a really surprising place. It's not about their legs or their hands, it's about their teeth. And what they tell us points to a quiet social revolution.
This is where it gets fascinating. Look at a male chimpanzee's teeth. They had these huge, sharp, dagger-like canines. They're weapons, used for fighting other males. Now look at the Ardipithecus male. His canines are tiny, blunt, and pretty much the same size as the females. He's basically disarmed himself. This is a massive shift away from how other apes behave.
So what does this mean? It all points to something called the provisioning hypothesis. Here's how it probably worked. Step 1. Females started choosing males that were less aggressive and more cooperative. Step 2. Walking on 2 legs freed up the hands, which meant males could now carry valuable food back to a female and her kids. Step 3. This food-for-sex trade-off creates a stronger pair bond. And Step 4. With less fighting inside the group and more cooperation, everybody's chances of spotting a predator and surviving go way up.
And that brings us to the verdict in our 4.4 million-year-old investigation. It seems like we need a new origin story, one that isn't about being the toughest ape in the jungle, but about learning to work together to survive.
Think about it. Being on the menu for millions of years was this incredible evolutionary force. It pushed our ancestors to live in groups, more eyes and ears to spot danger, right? It made cooperation essential for fending off predators. It might have even kickstarted language, maybe as simple alarm calls, and it definitely favored being smarter because predators often pick off the less clever prey. Brains became more important than brawn.
So, here's the verdict. Our humanity wasn't forged in the fire of the hunt. It was forged in the chilling reality of being the hunted. The big takeaway is that everything we think of as human, our social bonds, our ability to cooperate, our intelligence, it didn't come from being a killer. It came from being vulnerable prey.
So let's leave you with this question. If vulnerability, not dominance, is what sparked our humanity, what does that mean for how we see ourselves today and for our future? It's a pretty humbling idea, right? It suggests our greatest strengths grew from our deepest fears. And maybe, just maybe, it asks us to think a little differently about what it truly means to be human.